Today we'll talk about a fresh issue, a 2-week-old one, I would say. So we managed to organize this panel very quickly, but we also quite quickly got to the point where Empik is on production, on the website, on the chat channel, barely shared generative agent. And we're here because it worked out. If there were no results, we probably wouldn't be here. And these results are quite nice, and that's what we wanted to talk about. But maybe at the very start, I would first ask you where the decision even came from. Why even this technology? Why the move towards an AI agent at all?
I have the feeling that since the beginning of this conference, it was first very ideological, then somewhat frightening, and now we'll pragmatically say how it looks. We went through exactly the same path with us. That at first sort of like, because exactly this hype about eggs seemed to us that everyone personally had some opinion on concerns, and I am a huge fan of Black Mirror and science fiction especially. And just as you mentioned about the limitations, some are for, others against, it's probably that level of personal feeling on how this will change our lives. Then there was such a sort of fascination with the possibilities from the business side, and again it was necessary to have something, some concept, and these concepts kept expanding, and there were so many possibilities.
The boss ordered to have daily eggs.
No, we actually had more of a feeling because we are a team that is simultaneously an operational and conceptual team. In terms of changes within our team, right? And here it's hard to ride the tram while laying tracks in front of it, but we try to, and for sure there were a lot of concepts. We met to explore the technology, and on the conceptual level everything seemed very rosy, and then it kind of clashed with a pragmatic approach like databases, knowledge base, well, dozens of things that we should have organized first to approach Jajaja, and to the question of why we decided, Maciej summed it up well, because you told us how it can be done in a way that's kind of, so we made this decision very quickly on a volume of contacts that wasn't very risky for us at the start. And at the same time, it had an impact, so that enabling this for everything and control by both you and us is safe. And I think it's this detachment from these kinds of issues, from such ideas, later some overly ambitious concepts, to a very pragmatic approach. Well, let's turn dozens of automations into something that can be powered once and relearned. And anyway, we plan to, so to speak, clean up after years. And automation, you asked it at the right moment. We implemented it at the right moment.
So in summary, you need a good partner. Here I am sitting, right?
I paraphrased well, yes.
Thanks a lot. All right, so listen, well, if we have a decision, then we have to execute it somehow. So maybe you can tell us how the process of preparation and implementation looked like. How does it happen? Because it was quite fast too.
Very quick, because it lasted since the new year. As you know, that for, I don't know if you can hear me, because a bit closer. Because after that important December for us, where we focus on sales, in January, we decided, and already in December we talked about it, that we could go and see how it would be. We said, okay, let's go. And after 2 weeks, we were almost ready from those over 250 automations. And quite a few dozen workflows that we had so far, and which we constantly had to verify for the accuracy of the information we conveyed. We went down to 15, basically around 20, maybe at this moment. Short materials, but very specific, which we prepared for under AI to teach, because you could say we always treated the bot as our employee, whom we have to teach, constantly take care of. Well, we decided that we would teach it anew. It was a very good decision. A very quick implementation, I say it took 2 weeks. It was just about good preparation and listening to your advice from Zowie. And basically, what the previous speaker said about those 5 uncomfortable truths. It's essentially thanks to us talking that we avoided those mistakes. We knew that it is our employee whom we have to teach from the start. We must prepare a very good knowledge base. It wasn't about taking data from the help page or FAQs. It was about preparing this content from general to specific. Those 5 points in summary are the 5 points through which we avoided those mistakes and thus have good results.
Yes, that's exactly what I wanted to refer to, because today, with our experience with various clients, we often stumble at this point initially, and a year ago we also thought we would take the FAQs and it would work, right? Because everyone had that approach. GPT responds great, but it does really well with general questions, but when it needs to, it should always give a good answer. Well, then there's a problem. And many of our clients today do not have those articles well defined, do not have that knowledge well specified. From what I saw with you, it is nicely done in that we even ask specific questions in this knowledge base to the agent, and that's why we are able to get into the details, and it manages well because of this. So
yes, I will just add that it is very helpful for this knowledge base to be correctly created. It's that this bot was already functioning before, and we had categorized the questions that were coming to us. We could verify and prepare the knowledge base for what this client had previously asked in the chat. Plus, the processes that we transferred to our AI bot are processes that we know well, that are not surprising to us, that we know how they unfold. Because as was mentioned earlier, it's not a brain that knows everything. We provide the knowledge and processes that are quite complicated, and even our agent has often the problem or like some difficulty in solving. Well, AI definitely won't solve that for us either. So the fact that we previously had a bot that we have well documented and precise customer service paths, we have translated these. Basically, you could say we have translated 90% at the moment. Our automation hasn't decreased. The amount of automation, we are at the same level. But like I said, materials, paths, and sort of like that was the foundation.
the knowledge of processes is important, but the fact that they are documented is super important. This is often lacking, really. I promise it is very often missing. It's often in the heads of agents, some quality specialists, but it's not well documented, and that's the foundation. We have been thinking about this all day today, that data is the food for artificial intelligence. One more thing I wanted to ask about. During these preparations, since I wasn't around when we started working together, it was 3-4 years ago, meaning us as Zowie and Empik, but we found exactly 256 automations that are no longer used today, those script ones. I think a significant success, even before we move on to the results, is that indeed managing such a knowledge base where these messages were written earlier was that they always appeared in the same way. They needed to be updated. It could have been a difficult task. And I just heard from my colleagues that when we started the cooperation, it also took a long time to prepare that whole knowledge base. It was prepared in a good way, but it seems to me that if we go to the article today about returns and complaints, at least we know where to change things. And before, there were probably about 10 automations related to complaints, right?
Yes, well, I was also implementing a bot at Empik, and it was a good 2 months of work by several people, a small team. And it really took a lot of effort to make it fit the customer's query, various queries. However, here AI itself, it can extract the most important information the customer is asking about. So the implementation took preparing the knowledge base for the chatbot about 2 or 3 months comprehensively for 250 automations to be created. However, here it was, a week of work.
Probably some other model was useful too.
I will add one more thing regarding those 250 scripts. It was also frustrating after 3 years because we really didn't remember exactly what was in each. And I had this feeling that there was definitely some skeleton in the closet somewhere and it would come out at the least appropriate moment. The right moment, because you can't connect it that, oh, we mentioned this in that automation somehow, it's definitely going to come back and reach us from the other side. So that indeed in this aspect, such clarity and the purity of data, their updating now has a different perspective for us because we had it even if we hadn't integrated with EIA. That was our plan. Here, Marta was already delighted saying we have to read everything again. Shamurpiki is free to stage, so I'm glad we didn't have
Well,
to.
yes, and a lot is changing too. I don't know if at that moment somehow the marketplace, probably a bit earlier, the marketplace was going with you, but well, sort of marketplace. Of course, we know that it is already a completely different knowledge base. Okay, listen, let's move on to the results. I've already hacked my next question a bit, meaning what was the key factor of success? I just want to tell you because there are many non-clients here as we measure this full automation. That is, if a client starts a chat today on the chat channel with an agent, they resolve 58% of issues without involvement, a live agent. And this is a result that Empik can be very proud of. We are proud too, because indeed it is very high. So it was achieved in the first 2 weeks, that is, almost 20% or higher than what we previously had, to be honest. Well, we can still do a lot more because the training on live data has just started now. So there's still something beyond this data as a key factor of this success, these 58%.
Probably after the implementation itself, the time that must be devoted to training, to verifying if there are no hallucinations, whether all the data matches. You also can't overtrain. We already know that you also can't be too overzealous because remember we start with the assumption for us our chat is M. Our Emmy also needs time to process this knowledge, so we train her quite systematically, but not every day. At the moment, about 2 or 3 times a week. So I'll just finish by saying that now it's important to keep training, constantly improving this knowledge base, the content based on what we see. Well, such systematic work is necessary, but we definitely spend less time on it.
We also like to approach it this way. I'll come with the microphone in a moment because we want to educate our clients in such a way that dedicate as much time to this AI agent as to a human agent. Exactly, and human agent, if we suddenly throw all the policies of the world at him, he won't absorb them either. And you also need to check if he learned the first one before we teach him the second, third, more complex ones, so that it can actually work. I'm coming with the microphone. Thanks. So coming back to those worst case scenarios, I would like to ask about 2 metrics, namely ELO rate, meaning what were those hallucinations at what level, and second, customer satisfaction or CSAT. For example, did you measure whether people served by a bot had the same satisfaction as those served by a human agent?
When it comes to hallucinations, there were isolated cases that we basically ruled out right away at the level when we detected them, well, which emerged somewhere. This client received incorrect information, but given the volume of chats, you could really say they are like piñatas.
1 per mille, 90% is 1 per mille?
No, literally a few cases might have happened in these 2 weeks. A few instances, so to speak. And as for why the second part of the question, no, at the moment we haven't explored it further. However, because practically, well, we spend a lot of time reading all these content, it has not been examined by any indicator. However, we see that, for example, clients thank more often at the end than to the bot, even though they probably know that it's not a human. They definitely know, because sometimes our bot also says that it is a virtual assistant. So this more human element appears in the communication between the bot and the client. So based on this, I can only say without any indicator that satisfaction is probably greater, but we don't want to measure it. Once we get past this stage of implementation, we will definitely return to measurements and probably make some comparisons. For now, as Marta said, I was also surprised that there are more thanks. That's nice.
One more question. Have you noticed any attempts, for example, where someone tried to use this bot in a harmful way or in something that would be reputationally problematic for you? So any attempts to provoke a response and then post it somewhere on social media?
No, we didn't have such. We didn't meet. That was probably more like 3 years ago when we were implementing EMI for the first time, but I suspect those were our employees, that they tried to probe her a little and catch her off guard. And we also tried to joke around a bit because there were a few automations, maybe not exactly Easter eggs, because they didn't let us go that wild, but I think that it is the same risk of an error at some point as with any other employee. And considering that an employee can misread or misunderstand, it's sometimes harder to explain a human error that someone was misled or, God forbid, intentionally. However, we will continue to monitor because it was one of the concerns that we generally have for fun. That which was mentioned earlier, so as not to know. And I really liked what you said about having common sense and the awareness that it is a machine, and not to romanticize about this solution, but it is a technological solution, and we have, just like with any other solution, we can imagine that it will be used very ambitiously, but on the phone we browse through cut pictures, and so there will be trivial uses and probably more ambitious, but for now we want to use it very pragmatically and exclude what can be, but not to the extent that is possible, and not to zero, because that probably can't be done.
Thanks a lot for the questions, because now I have two less to ask, which I was given later in the panel, but I would also like to comment. I mean, it seems to me that the time for testing these bots has somewhat passed, that a bit less of it is actually happening. When it comes to these hallucinations, of course, they do occur, but it's also somewhat our responsibility here as a provider to build this technology so that it... she quickly gives up if she doesn't know, if it's not in the knowledge base. And that's why we have 58%, not 100% automation, because ChatGPT would have 100% because it always answers questions. Well, we also take responsibility for it, right? So if we don't find something in what, for example, Empik provides us as a knowledge base, then it simply says, hey, all right, now, the boss, a protein agent will answer that question for you because I can't manage it. So, all right, listen, a lot of knowledge was shared today, and there will probably be fewer surprises in your minds, but did anything surprise you during this implementation? And this can be either positive or negative.
Not directly negatively, maybe not, because each implementation requires a certain level of commitment. And it was fairly good from the start. So we were not negatively disposed either. Definitely positive. I mean, surprising, maybe a bit too, maybe not negative, but surprising and positive was the preparation of the persona. Like how our both our Emmy, who giving her character an element of humanity, meaning describing her properly, which actually translates into the responses she gives. And that's also an element that is ongoing because we keep her we sort of create and mold her to be as perfect as we want. So besides having defined what she should be, like being nice, but give short answers. No, don't use too many emojis, right? Don't elaborate too much, right? Or elements like that, which keep coming to us, because at the beginning, this persona was, I don't know, about 15 sentences. Now we're constantly adding, like, be like this, don't be like that. And with each day, we see that what we add and shape, mold it. And this element of humanity precisely translates into how these conversations look. And that's probably why there are these thank yous, because she is becoming more and more human. In these responses, I already skipped the knowledge base, because from it, it's like we provide strictly the substantive knowledge, but indeed this element of empathy is also there. Sometimes she even asks clients, if there's anything else I can help you with, just let me know. She is already more open, so with each day, these emotions are also becoming more visible. So it was very positive and quite an element, both surprising and pleasant in this whole implementation, also positive.
Well, our favorite elements in Zowie are when we add to this persona for the AI agent to be humorous, and then it makes a joke in every statement. So we don't write that the AI agent should be humorous. All right, listen, we're going to wrap up now, but anything else? All right, sure. How do you approach the length of conversation when it comes to if the client doesn't agree with the policy? It's not about that. The policy is as you wish. The bot answers, the client disagrees. So what happens then on your side? Does the client stay with the bot and the bot simply repeats the same answer in some other way, or a person explains it? Because it's known that sometimes people don't want to, meaning they don't believe the bot's answer, but when a human says it, they accept it. So how does it look for you?
In total, I guess we don't have that many such cases. I don't even recall since implementation that there were cases where our client, it seems like they don't accept this answer, but we always have it set up that if the customer requests a connection with a consultant, despite the answers received, they are always connected to a consultant. So maybe that's why we don't notice it directly. Bouncing the ball back and forth between the bot and the client, because, well, here we are open and we want the client to be satisfied, and we do not force them to converse with the bot. If this answer does not satisfy him, he can always decide that no, and write that they are not satisfied, and then the bot will likely suggest a connection with the consultant. However, since these responses are of really good quality, the client usually accepts them, and if not, they always have the option to connect with a consultant.
Listen, we have run out of time. I'll take this as my last question about the future, that is future integrations. Now, Maciejczak will talk about integrations. He will show you that it can be done nicely in a deterministic way and can be really high quality. So thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Come on.
Thank you for the questions. Very interesting.